Hi everyone. I'm going to start posting weekly videos on our Comp 1 Blackboard site in which I provide you with an overview of the things that we're going to do in class that week. I know that not everyone prefers to read instructions and just sort of learn based on those. And a lot of people benefit from being able to hear things explained out loud. So that's why I'm going to start making these videos. The first part of this video will be for Comp 1 students, and then towards the end of the video I will switch to talking about my fundamentals of college writing students. And so if you are just in Comp 1 and you are not in both classes, don't feel the need to keep watching to the end of the video. These videos are optional. You don't ever have to watch them, but I just know some people might benefit from having these. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our classroom here, and we're going to take a look at what we are doing in class for week 4. All right, so our overview of week 4. This is an important week because it's the first time one of your major projects is due for this course. Before submitting your work, though, you'll give feedback to your peers to help them make their projects even better, and your peers will do the same for you. Try to be honest, helpful, and encouraging in your commenting process. So that's our overview. Going to move on to our first task for this week. So first thing that you'll be doing is a couple of discussion board posts. For this, so this is a peer review activity that we are going to be doing. Peer review refers to the process of getting and giving feedback on a draft from peers. For our purposes in this course, your peers are your classmates, people who are working on the same assignment you are working on. Their feedback can be extremely valuable in helping you make your writing effective. This week you will read and comment on 2 of your classmates' drafts. The drafts are what you posted to the discussion board for last week. So how the process is going to work, you can choose whose drafts you would like to read. Early on in the week, you should claim the drafts. You will go to one of your peers, and beneath their draft, you will post a reply and letting them know that you are going to read their draft. And the reason for this is we're going to try and spread out everyone as much as we can. So we want everyone to receive at least one round of feedback. What we want to avoid is a few people receiving feedback from a whole bunch of people. So we're going to try to spread it out a little bit. So you have a recommendation here. Try not to claim a draft if 2 other people have already claimed it. And in fact, what you should do is try to claim drafts that haven't been claimed by anyone yet. Because it really stinks if at the end of the peer review process you end up not getting any feedback from your peers. It's not a good feeling. So we want to try to make sure that everyone gets at least one round of feedback. What you should do is read each of the drafts, and as you read, you need to consider these questions. Is the opening interesting? Is the overall number and arrangement of vignettes effective? So should they have more vignettes? Should they have fewer? Would a different order be more effective? Were there places where you were confused? This is an especially important piece of feedback. If there's something that you weren't able to follow or weren't able to understand, there's a good chance that that means that the writer needs to take another look at that section. Even if it's just, changing the word order, choosing slightly better word choice, that can really help improve a paper. Are people and scenes being described vividly? They're using lots of sensory details. Are they including dialogue to try to make their vignettes a little bit more interesting? Does each vignette focus on very specific events or a relatively short timeline? A vignette is kind of a self-contained unit. You don't want it to be super long. It usually focuses on a single scene, a single moment, a single event or memory, and they tend not to be longer stories. Is the significance of the vignette clear? It should be obvious kind of what the purpose of each vignette is and how they are all connecting together to create an overall theme or message. Does the visual design enhance the overall collage? So are they using headers? Did they choose a good font? Should they include any, pictures or videos, anything like that? Things that are going to make it either easier to read or more interesting to read. Could the organization of the paragraphs within the collage be better? Which is a slightly different thing than are the vignettes in a good order. So your vignettes might be in a good order, but the paragraphs inside of the vignettes might need rearranging. And then are there any editing things they need to work on? Things related to spelling, grammar, stuff like that. And finally, share some tips from the chapters that you have been reading in the field guide. Have you come across a section or an idea from the book that might be especially helpful to your peers? If so, let them know and give them the details of where they can find that. After reading each draft, you should write comments on the draft, comments about the draft, or make a video of yourself talking directly to your peer, sort of like what I'm doing now. You use the questions above as a guide for making your comments. If you decide to type your comments, please type them directly into the text box of your discussion thread. So when you reply to your peer, you're first going to reply to your peer and claim their draft, and then you will reply with your feedback on their paper. If you choose to make a video, you should follow these instructions below. Before I move on to the next task, let me show you what it'll look like to do this peer review. So I'm going to go to our discussion board and then take a look at the week 3/4 discussion. And let's say I was going to review Sierra's draft. So I would click on her thread. And then I would click reply, letting her know that I'm going to read her draft. And then you click submit. I'm not going to do that. I'm just using this as an example. And then when you actually provide your feedback, you'll do basically the same thing. You'll click reply, and you will type up your comments in this text box. And I find it helpful. I would at least appreciate it. I can't vouch for your peers if you would number your responses. So instead of writing your feedback in just one big paragraph, address each prompt that was provided. I will say if I get the sense that you're skipping over too many of the prompts or you're not providing very thorough feedback to your peers, then there's a good chance that you will not get full credit on the assignment. Once you post your feedback in this text box or upload a video following those instructions, you will click submit. All right, I'm going to go back to our week 4 module. I'm noticing that my computer is running a little bit slower than it used to. I think it's because I'm running video recording software as well as this thing that is creating the background behind me, as well as having a couple of other tabs open. So I guess I'm probably pushing either my processor or my RAM a bit much. Your second task this week, task 4.2, is revising and editing your draft. When you revise, try to use your peers' advice to make the draft as good as it could be. One thing I will say about peer review is it's up to you to decide what feedback you want to use and which feedback doesn't really seem helpful, because you'll probably receive a mix. Some suggestions will be worth taking, others may not be. And that's fine. That's just part of being learning how to be a good writer, is deciding which feedback you should take. When you're finished revising, spend some time doing a final editing check, and this is to look for sentence level mistakes, again, grammar, punctuation. And we have a video here about verb tense consistency, which is a common error that I have seen in narrative writing. So I'd take a look at that when you're going through your editing process. I'm going to move on to our next task for the week. Task 4.3, preparing for teacher review. To get a sense of how I might respond to your draft and apply the grading rubric, please read the sample paper attached above and watch the 2 videos available below. So here is a sample narrative. And then watching these 2 videos will give you an idea of how I am going to handle grading your paper. Now, someone else made these videos, so my process is probably not going to be exactly like theirs, but I do know that it will be pretty similar. And it's often a good idea to know how your professors are going to be grading your work. Task 4.4 is a kind of self-reflection activity. Once you're finished with your draft, it's a good idea to reflect, to look back and think about what went well and what you'd improve in the future. So after you are done receiving your feedback and after you're done revising, so this is basically like the last thing you'll do before actually submitting your draft, you're going to answer these questions. What went well? What did you struggle with? Who or what did you consult to get help? Did the assignment remind you of any writing you've done previously? And if so, please describe it. What was new to you about the assignment? And be as clear, as specific as you can. Did you use photos or other visual elements in your writing? And if so, what do you feel like they added to the overall piece? Can you think of any elements that you might have used but didn't? Which chapters or parts of the textbook did you consult for help, and how did they help you? Look back at the Developing Academic Habits of Mind chapter, which is chapter 4. During our first unit of our course, did you practice or further develop any of the 8 habits of mind listed in the chapter? In what ways specifically? Also, what habit of mind do you want to work on during the rest of our course, and why? And then the last thing here, watch the video below about uses of narrative writing. Based on this video and on your own experiences and observations, from your writing primarily or from things that you've read, how do you think narrative writing might be useful to you in your future endeavors? And all of this is just kind of a nice way to wrap up this paper, to get you to reflect on, what you did well and what you could stand to improve on in the future. And also to just sort of cement some of those lessons that you have probably been learning along the way. The last 2 pages of our module here are where you will submit your work. So this first page is submitting the work for task 4.4, which is the taking stock of your responses activity. Please note that you are not submitting your final draft for writing project 1 here. You're going to do that on the next page. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. So on this last page, this is where you're going to submit writing project 1. And that is due Sunday by 11:59. I think that is all that I need to say for this week. Comp 1 students, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. The rest of this video is going to focus on what we are doing in Fundamentals of College Writing. So if you're not in that class, you don't need to keep watching this video. All right, for fundamentals, or English 0199, if I remember correctly, this is going to be a pretty straightforward week. I think our conferences are kind of the focus of what we're doing in class for fundamentals. Your overview here, this week you will call me or in some other way contact me, either Collaborate or Microsoft Teams, and hopefully that conversation will help you make sure that you feel good about writing Project 1. Task 4.1 is attending the conference. Hopefully you all have set up a time with me for that. Task 4.2 is thinking about genre. Here are some different definitions of genre. Genre, you can think of it as a way of classifying things. It's also like a type, so a genre of movie is a type of movie. It's also in writing, or really other types of genres, it's conventions as well. So if you were going to a horror movie, horror is a genre. If you go to that movie, you expect that movie to contain certain things. You expect it to be probably, pretty dark as far as its lighting and its tone. It's probably going to be violent. It's maybe going to mess with your head a little bit. There's going to be, creepy music, some jump scares. Those are the conventions, the expectations of that genre. If you go to a horror movie and it's, very like happy and sunshiny and, there's a bunch of, jokes and stuff, you're probably going to be let down because that movie didn't meet your expectations of that genre. And the same thing goes for writing as well. A lot of writing is understanding the genre expectations that your reader is going to have for you. For writing Project 1, you're writing within the genre of nonfiction narrative collage. Here are just a few of the major conventions for this genre. The subject matter is the life of the writer, so that's what you're talking about. You're talking about your own life. The characters and events reflect things that actually happen. Notice that I use the word reflect here. So it doesn't have to be 100% true. You can kind of, you can be artistic, you can take some liberties, but they should reflect things that actually happened. The form of the narrative consists of shorter vignettes. The collage includes a conflict with tension that often leads to some sort of insight. The character, the protagonist usually learns something. The collage should include some sensory images, things that appeal to sight, smell, taste, sound, and that's really going to make your story come to life for your reader. It's going to help draw them in. It's all right to use informal language, especially if it's in dialogue. And it's also fine to use I, so first person. I think this happened to me. That is all perfectly acceptable in this genre of writing. And I have some videos down here that will tell you a little bit more about genre. And then the last thing that you need to do for fundamentals this week is the discussion board post. You only need to answer one of the following two questions. The first one is, name a few genres that you enjoy within music, film, or literature. Then select one and type out as many conventions of the genre as you can. Here are just a few things you may think about as you complete your genres profile. The subject matter, theme, style, tone, purpose, audience, pacing, sound, length, etc. So that's your first option. Your second option, it's a fun experiment to imagine a genre as a type of person. So let's make a dating profile for a genre you know well. Pick a genre you are familiar with and answer the following questions from the perspective of the genre. Be as creative as you'd like. So the questions here for you to answer. If I had to sum up my personality in one sentence, the first thing people usually notice about me, where I usually like to hang out, so on and so forth. And so this is a little bit more creative than this first one here. This is a way for you to just kind of think more in depth about the idea of genre. And then here are some instructions for how to make your post. I think that should be it. I don't think there's anything else I need to cover for fundamentals. I will be talking to some of you here shortly. and I look forward to hearing from you.